Hi everyone, welcome to my Module 1 Formative Assessment Technologies review. The technology that I chose to use for this module is called quizzes. If you are familiar with online tools or technologies that are kind of more current, quizzes is something that you may have used in your classroom before. My district is nice that they will actually pay for the premium option, so I get to use it for like a wide array of all of the things that it offers. But basically, it's an online tool that teachers can use for virtually any content or grade. The description of how it works is you can create classes, so you can set up different classes based off of period or subject. Within those classes, you can then create and assign activities to your students. The nice part about it is that it will actually give you a link for the different assignments you use, and you can post that on your learning management system for students to have access to. For me in my classroom, I will post the link onto Schoology and have a set time frame like embedded into that activity that students have to complete it. It also gives you reports based off of every activity you do, and I'll get a little bit more into those reports in a second. There's a ton of different lessons and activities that they offer, but then there's also ones already created by teachers in the field who then post that activity so other teachers can have access to it. And then they also have an option where they use AI technologies in order to create different assessments and activities for students based off specific content. So the different types of resources that you have access to are assessments, lesson plans, interactive videos, and passages with questions. And then the reports section is something that I think is the most beneficial and user-friendly for teachers. So this is why I'm choosing quizzes, because I think that in terms of assessment, having these data reports is really, really nice for us to be able to analyze what our students know and then help us make decisions moving forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about an example here. So I chose to use one that I did with my students a few days ago on cellular respiration. So once you have that assessment created, you have a few options here of how you want to assign it to students. The one option that I use the most is just copying this link and posting it into my Schoology class page for students to have access to. And then this is just a small snapshot of the report section that it shows you. The accuracy growth is the first time they take it to the second time they take it. Completion rate just shows you how many of the students who participated actually completed the assignment. And then it gets more into individual student breakdowns and then the overall class average. So why I chose quizzes, I love it for a few reasons. One of the big ones is that I'm able to align it with my content standards really nicely. It helps me save time on grading because it will automatically grade and provide students with feedback. And then the report breakdown really shows me where I need to focus my attention to moving forward with my students. Applying this to some of the content that we learned this week in Module 1, so basing it off of the 5 key classroom assessment qualities, starting with key 3 for sound design, I kind of went through the different questions that we were provided in the textbook and answered a few of them that I think relate the most to quizzes. So the assessment definitely aligns to science standards, so I think the accuracy of the information is there. I do also think that it can control for bias because it's all online, so everything's graded online, everything is pulling from the same set of content, so all of the questions that students are getting exposed to should be provided to them in a non-biased manner. In terms of key 4, so using formative assessment practices effectively, I think for me as a teacher, it gives me a lot of data that I can use to base my classroom decisions in terms of how I'm teaching students and what I'm continuing to teach them. And then students will also be able to receive and act on feedback in an instant manner. So for example, whenever I use some of these assessments, I will give students the option to have 2 attempts at it, and each attempt is the same content, but they're different set of questions. So they're being exposed to the content in multiple ways. So that way, if they didn't do so well in the first time, that second time they go back and revisit it, hopefully they're able to improve their score. And then for effective communication, I think this is the key that really sticks with quizzes the most, because I do think that it communicates really well where your students are at, like data-wise, and how they're improving. And so I think it then falls back on the teacher being able to communicate that to students. So a few of the ways that I think I would like implement this more into my classroom would be pulling up the overall class scores and going through some of those questions where maybe more than 50% of the students got them wrong, because like for me, I would take a step back and say, okay, this is something that I definitely need to revisit with them before I move on to new content. So there are a few aspects that I think can be kind of missing from using a completely online technology, and then just being mindful as a teacher, like, okay, this is something that I need to revisit like face to face with my students. So looking at the formative usefulness, so do students offer accurate feedback to peers? And then are they engaging in accurate self-assessment and productive goal setting? I think these are two things that would kind of be hard to do with quizzes alone. So I think like the teacher would need to step in and make this a little bit more interactive with the students' peers, and then also like having the students look at their scores and like setting a goal for themselves of, okay, this is where I want to be the next time I take it. So things like that. And then effective communication, I briefly mentioned this last slide, but I think once again this falls on the teacher being able to kind of mediate those conversations with students. So instead of just assigning this assignment and calling it a day, I think the big thing I learned from this first module is that if there's no action, there's no learning gain. So like if we're just doing these assignments back to back and it's all this formative assessment, but we as teachers aren't communicating with our students like, okay, well, this is what you actually got, and what does this mean for you moving forward? I think we need to be more mindful about that, and that's something that I'm definitely going to be working on as I progress more into my teaching career. So this is my review of quizzes and the different formative assessment technologies that it's able to provide for teachers. Thank you.